So what if the next disaster that happens in One Piece doesn't just lead to the last great war, but with a jailbreak? And that jailbreak being Impel Down 2 Electric Boogaloo. And it might actually have something to do with Elbaf's Ragnarok prophecy. So of course, in Impel Down right now, there are so many important characters still to the story that are enjoying, unfortunately, a permanent staycation in the prison. And this can't stay that way forever, since their stories still aren't finished yet. We still don't know what Weevil really is. I mean, he's definitely the botched clone of Whitebeard and not actually his son, but we don't yet know that. We still don't know the secret of what Doflamingo knows about Marie-Joie and potentially even Emu. We still haven't had our fabulous Wendigo himself, Bon Clay, join the Straw Hats. So many plot points are being kept at the bottom of the sea right now, and they need to float to the surface at some point, don't they? Now, I'm gonna get into all the ways in which it makes sense to sequel the iconic Impel Down arc and the ways in which this might happen, but as far as I see it, the main thing is that this adventure is almost definitely going to be without the Straw Hats for this one. Sans Straw Hats, and possibly also off screen. And if you don't want videos like this to be off your screen, then consider subscribing. Thanks. Now, to get into why this kind of needs to happen, I briefly touched on it at the start, but it obviously centers around the fact that all of these characters haven't finished their storylines yet. There's still quite a lot of mystery, questions to be answered about them, and so they need to be broken out. Now, a big part of this theory, to me, actually centers around Cross Guild, since that pirate crew is effectively a crew of ex-warlords created by the vacuum of that system ending. And Impel Down currently has Doflamingo, Weevil, and possibly Gecko Moria too, 3 ex-warlords. So additions to the crew of the level of strength as Doflamingo and Gecko Moria and everybody else, additions to the crew with the level of strength as these 3 would be essential to Cross Guild to really bolster their numbers and ability to go toe to toe with the big dogs like the Red Hairs or the Straw Hats, since they don't have a Yonko captain powerhouse that the others do. To me, this creates a brilliant opportunity as well to additionally recruit the likes of people like King and Queen if they were also taken to Impel Down, which you'd have to presume they were, because we know for a fact at least that King is still kicking because of this panel. It does also feel very Oda-coded to have Cross Guild like Mihawk and Crocodile bully Buggy into returning back to Impel Down, against his will obviously, in order to do this. But there is one more faction apart from Cross Guild that we need to talk about regarding the interest of going into Impel Down, and that's the Whitebeard remnants. Because the Whitebeard remnants' only real purpose left to the story beyond joining the Straw Hat fleet at some point is tied to Weevil and finding out the legitimacy of his lineage. Although, again, let's be honest, he's almost definitely a failed Whitebeard clone before Vegapunk had perfected his technique with Stussy 2 Electric Boogaloo. So if there's anyone with a reason to break him out of Impel Down, it's the Whitebeard remnants, or at least Marco, who has kind of expressed interest in this. It could very well be, however, that the answer of who goes into Impel Down is actually a mix of the 2 options, and that it's a team up between Cross Guild and Marco who mount this rescue attempt. But there's still that big problem, right, of how do they even break into Impel Down, since of course Impel Down is an absolute fortress that has probably also been even more fortified since Luffy's pre-time skip tirade. Well, right, what about this? We all know by now how much Oda loves topping off an arc by going scorched earth and absolutely wrecking the whole place. But with us ramping up in the last saga of the show, it feels likely to me that something as extreme even as a Ragnarok event so chaotic that it rattles the whole world around Elbaf and even topples the Atom Tree itself might be an inevitability. So what if such an end of days event also happens to crack the foundation of the ocean floor, Impel Down included? This would obviously need to be quite good timing and serendipitous for a rescue to take place at the same time, but right now I think it's the best case scenario for how you get everyone out of Impel Down without taking the spotlight away from the Straw Hats and the main story, since this is something that, like the Rocky Port incident, will probably happen off screen and we see it in cutaways or flashbacks briefly, I imagine at least. So yeah, I do believe that Impel Down is going down, and Prison Break Season 2 also needs to happen, I believe, effectively just to save those characters' storylines from ending before they've actually concluded, if that makes sense. And whether it's Cross Guild storming the gates with or without Marco, breaking in for Weevil, or Elbaf's Ragnarok literally ripping apart the ocean floor and destroying the prison that way, it is gonna happen soon, I imagine. If not Elbaf's Ragnarok event, then one that happens just before the main fight, because all these characters need to be present for that. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the Impel Down sequel. If you think it's gonna happen a different way or not gonna happen at all, I'd love to know your thoughts. Let me know what they are down in the comments, and hit subscribe if you liked what you've heard, because I'd just love it. So I would. Bye.